So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the non-dual quality tenderness. And I think tenderness is a very important non-dual quality, but one of the most problematic also because, it seems to be so wounded in most of us. So often when we look to tenderness and the expression of tenderness, it's misjudged. It's seen as weakness or the wrong kind of softness. Not as a strength, not as a quality. And of course, when there is a lack of tenderness, so often what we see coming forward is an attitude of cruelty. So why is this non-dual quality of tenderness, and which comes with the sense of tenderness, but not only the sense of tenderness, but also an attitude of tenderness towards yourself, and an attitude of tenderness towards others. Why is this so important? We all are in the same position right here. We have a body. And we expressing ourselves and getting impressions through form. And part of the forms we kind of moving through and what we are learning are very, very vulnerable. Of course, when we look at our essence is not that vulnerable. It's eternal. And it cannot be wounded. But the moment that the essence kind of moves into the physical and we start to learn through the physical, we go into a whole process of vulnerability. We identify, with the body. We identify with the forms which are coming forward. We kind of have to structure and realize a separate identity. And that's a very painful procedure. And partly because in kind of to build this separate identity, we move through stages of separation. We lose the connection with our own inner wholeness. We lose the connection with the all we are part of, the whole universe we are part of. We are learning from the world around us, adults, nature, movies, whatever, about how to manifest ourselves, how to structure ourselves, how to express. But not only how to express, but also how to kind of understand things which are coming towards you, how to relate to it. We learn attitudes. And in all of this, because we identify with it, which is necessary, this identification, because, to identify with kind of helps us to kind of build this separate identity, an I. But that makes us very, very vulnerable. And in the whole process, all of us get hurt and get traumatized. It's not easy. It's not all honky-dory. And so often, when we look to the pain, which is part of the birth of identity, the birth of the physical body on this planet, the birth of a physical awareness, a physical consciousness. So the pain which is part of that, often our attitude towards it is an attitude in which there is a lot of cruelty. It's not a lot of tenderness towards ourselves and towards others. When we get hurt, we so easily hurt another person. And partly because, we feel cruelty is happening to us, so sadism is coming out. We start to enjoy the pain of another person. Or we have the tendency to kind of, to dig in our own pain and go on digging and digging and digging and using our pain as a means to separate ourselves from the others. As patterns of masochism. Almost wanting to be hurt, because if we hurt, then we are okay. If we get hurt, not if we hurt another person. If we're hurting, we have a right to exist. And all of this is in form. So what is this? What is this attitude of tenderness? What is the sense of tenderness? So how is our consciousness moving with tenderness? So, when you just imagine that our consciousness is moving with tenderness to another being or to a part of ourselves. Let's say our hand. And our consciousness is moving with tenderness towards our hand. So when you look to it, it's a careful movement. It's not a forceful movement. It's not a controlling movement. It's the opposite. If we move with tenderness towards our hand, it's like the hand is lighting up with its own life. The individuality of the hand is recognized. Is affirmed. If we move with tenderness to a tree, it's like, we affirm the existence, the full existence or being of a tree. If we touch another person with tenderness, it's affirming the existence of whatever is there, is going on in the other person, the existence of the other person, the existence of any experience in the other person at that moment. So the touch with tenderness, not only helps in conflicts. Of course, when a person is very sad, you can touch a person with tenderness, with your conscious awareness or with your hand or whatever. And that's affirming the sadness. But it's also affirming what's behind that. It brings forward the wholeness in a person. It brings forward also the non-dual space in a person, the part which is moving beyond crying, beyond pain. The inner core of the person, the essence of the person, is also touched. So to move with tenderness is deepening the connection. It's affirming, it's opening up, it's a meeting position between the depth of you with the depth of the other person. It opens up. And partly that makes it such an important non-dual quality. Because to meet each other with tenderness is incredibly healing. It creates relaxation, openness, togetherness, connection. It's so incredibly affirming of the connection, safety, trust, equality. All these non-dual qualities are so much connected with this movement of this quality of tenderness. And again, when there is a lack of tenderness, and there is a kind of hardness, so often cruelty is coming forward. Sadism. And why is this sadism coming forward? So what does it mean? When we lose the connection with this quality of tenderness inside ourselves. And the first thing is, we feel isolated. It's a kind of rupture. Tenderness is also a bridge through isolation, through loneliness. We are suffering. There's an incredible pain when there has been a lack of tenderness inside ourselves, towards ourselves, but inside ourselves, towards ourselves as well. It's very poor. And then so often what's coming forward is this kind of joy. Not a real joy, but a kind of joy. Pleasure, maybe, is the right expression. Pleasure in pain. Pleasure in pain of others. And pleasure in pain of ourselves. If we are not able to connect with ourselves with tenderness, so often what we do is we start to connect with ourselves with a cruelty. We start to beat ourselves up. and partly from our minds. I'm telling you, no, you're not good enough, you're not worth anything, you deserve what you get. You're really, really bad. We make a mistake and then we beat ourselves up over the mistake louder and harder as anybody around us will do. We bring ourselves completely down. There's a sadism in that. So the meeting position between our consciousness and other layers of ourselves can be very cruel. And of course, when you look at it from the other side, is the one who is receiving this punishment, is receiving all this rejection. That part of ourselves is suffering, but also is kind of, almost addicted to it. When it wouldn't happen, it's like it's unsatisfied. And this is also in relationship between people. If you don't get rejected, if there is not a strong reaction, or sometimes sadism, we feel unsatisfied. So there's whole patterns of behavior where we kind of, we start to basically invite the other person by little remarks, by little needle pricks. To hurt us. And why? Why are we doing this? Why do we need negative attention? Partly because negative attention is better as no attention. In our beliefs, in our mind, we kind of think that if we get negative attention, that at least we exist, that somebody cares about us. We get beaten up a little bit emotionally, at least the other person is noticing us. When a person is really angry with us and expresses sadistic, when we're in this pattern, it means that we exist. It's like a bridge. We are seen. And we hope that it will break the isolation we feel deep inside. But it's very muggy. It's not a real connection because, afterwards there's always guilt, there's always blame, there's always all this crap which comes with it. And there is no tenderness in the connection. So, tenderness as a non-dual quality, when we look to the depth of it, is unconditional. Nothing is there to be expected from it. There is freedom in the connection, freedom in the touch. Freedom towards yourself and freedom towards the other person. Again, it comes with so many non-dual qualities. It is in the moment. It's real. And again, what I said already before, it touches to the depth. So a touch like this is not entangling. And often when we lose connection with it, the touch what we want is much more entangling. It's much more with an agenda. Like a lot of interactions we have, contracts we have with people. We have to think the same. You cannot contradict, but if you contradict, then this. And it's all kind of more emotional connections. We are angry about the same thing. We are fearful that the other will kind of reject us. We are fearful for the cruelty, the sadism of the other person, or sometimes fearful of the victim in the other person, which is much more on the area of masochism. We walk on eggs. We do our best. We have all these rules we have to keep, what to talk about, what not to talk about, how to behave, what to show, what not to show. With this friend, I cannot show any sadness. With this friend, I cannot become angry, because if I become angry, it's the end of the world. I will lose this friend. With all these rules, how to be, what to be. It's a whole interaction which is between the two of you, but also spreads around a little bit. Because, you can have the same friends, and you can have the same enemies, but it cannot be that your friend is the enemy of another person. That's already very complex. How could you be friends when your friend is the enemy of the other person, or the enemy of the other person, is your friend? It's the other way around. Same. That's difficult. That's complex, isn't it? How could you have a relationship like this? So there is a lot of things, if you look into this, which are not allowed to be, not allowed to exist. And then if you look to this whole relationship, there is a lot of shared pain in it. And the relationship sometimes is more about avoiding pain. Our intention is to avoid pain, not to really touch each other, not to really, maybe on the background, to be together. Not really to blend, but to avoid pain, to avoid rejection. And this is exactly also where the tenderness gets lost. Where the depth, the real connection gets lost. In such a situation, tenderness is almost not possible. When we are in such a connection with a person, just invite tenderness and see what happens. Invite the feeling of tenderness. Start to connect with tenderness. What's happening? It's very uncomfortable. It's difficult. It doesn't fit really. It's like when tenderness is coming forward, the connection becomes much more real, much more essential. And sometimes there is moments of tenderness. There's moments in which we really tenderly touch each other. But then we turn around and we go back into our armor, and the tenderness is gone. And sometimes we then come into a patterns where we need to humiliate the other person a little bit to make sure that the tenderness is gone. Tenderness is only in the bedroom, nowhere else. But at least there's some connection, some tenderness. So when we look at this so important quality, when this quality of tenderness is coming forward, the connection is real. It's in awe. It brings yourself and the other person alive. Even if you connect with yourself with tenderness, things start to open up, to integrate. They move into wholeness. So also in the whole process of inner development, inner growth, an attitude of tenderness is so important. It moves together with respect. Respect of the patterns maybe you're wrestling with, which are difficult. Instead of a cruelty kind of, of rejecting parts of yourself which are already so much rejected even more. An attitude of tenderness opens up, brings a deep insight. It's another non-dual quality. Why things are as they are. An understanding. And a deep respect. Maybe oversight. Insight is almost not possible without a touch of tenderness. Again, it's a non-dual quality which is so central and so important in our whole attitude towards being alive, being here, having a body, being into the physical realm. Which is a very vulnerable position to be in.